Thanks a lot for joining us for our 10th and our last session of our design pattern course. So it was a big journey, and I'm really happy to see you from the beginning up to here. It was 10 weeks, very intensive, and we've gone through a lot of examples from the book. We discussed different ideas behind patterns, why we didn't see them, why we have seen them, and let's today talk about combining patterns and about MVC. And overall, it's like last session to close our intensive course. Okay, so just a reminder who we are. And everything that we share do not relate to our current career experience, but it's all about career experience that we had in the past. Okay, so let me start to ask you, what is visitor pattern useful for that we looked at in our last session? Yes, Barbara?
Um, so I think the visitor pattern is when you have maybe something really complex and you could switch between different versions of it, but you don't want to put that into those original objects. So you don't want to. So I think an example was on Factoring Guru. If you have different insurance policies, which are very complex and have a lot of business logic inside of that, and if you have someone who sells these different insurances, maybe they can choose between them, but you don't want to put that logic into those insurances. So instead, you use that visitor pattern to manage switching between those ones, so you don't touch those original data.
Yeah, that's very good answer. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I don't know even what to add. Also, I think I would add that visitor is helpful also when you have composite pattern. So this book example about menus, and then we wanted to add some behavior to different subtypes of menus. So we could reuse it to have visitor instead of implementing several times the same methods. But yeah, it's very good, very good. Okay, so let's go to next question. What is flight weight pattern useful for? Okay, we have two hands. Who was the first? Okay, let's start with Ori.
Okay, so the flight weight pattern is a pattern that helps to reduce the memory usage. For example, with video games, when there are many objects that are similar, then there is a way to share the data in a kind of central location, and this allows the program to be faster and more efficient.
Yeah, that's correct. We're using it for memory performance or improvements. Anything to add, Dennis?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the flight weight pattern is that it's very rarely implementable, but it's more already a design that you can use, and it's the interesting example was how you can overcome the instantiation of an object and it really had a link to the factory and the other patterns that again helps reduce the memory usage when you instantiate objects.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And here we're talking about objects that we have as a data models, like something dynamically changed every time. So we may do not even create them through factories at all, but we build this abstraction to lightening them, to make them smaller than we need. That's correct. And Pradna?
So I think Denise and the first person already covered it, but the example that I think stuck in my mind is that if you have, say, an icon that to be displayed 10 in 10 places over a screen. The most memory would be used in the image itself of the icon, and so that can be a common factor, and the locations, the coordinates would be different, and that's where the flyweight pattern would be used.
Yeah, that's correct. That's a very popular usage of this pattern indeed. Okay, and let's go for last one, interpreter pattern. Yes, Pratna?
So the interpreter pattern would the way I had used it ages ago, and I think I mentioned that last time, that in my college days I had to try to create a calculator which would accept a statement like a multiplied by b, and then it would give the answer. So interpreting that, whether the grammar of the statement is correct or not, and based on the rules defined in that pattern, that's where it would be used. So it mostly uses recursive ness a lot.
Yes, like we would like to improve our calculation. So calculator could be implementation of calculator as DSL, the main language, would be a good example for interpreter. And as we shared, like you may find out that business could do some operations for you instead of asking you to do tasks. In this case, you can build some domain language for business and use some ideas of this pattern that mostly simplify your life a lot as a developer and go and work on other more interesting tasks instead of doing the same business operations. So that's where you could think, oh, how I would apply interpreter, how I would use domain language for my business to develop very quickly whatever they want instead of asking me to change code, deploy, testing, do those releases. So that may help you. Okay, good. Thanks a lot for answers. So today we going to talk about combining patterns. Let me know if everyone have a look for this chapter, combining patterns. Could you raise your hand? Yeah, okay. So I didn't put example from the book here. I would really recommend to go and look at these examples because basically they already shared patterns as we already looked at it here. I wasn't agreed with everything when I read it for the first time. Second time I've read it again and I realized, okay, actually it's good implementation, and I was thinking how I would re-implement it in my way. And then I realized, okay, by using patterns, they did it indeed more flexible than I would do this. I would do this in a bit different way. But then I realized, okay, I actually going to counter some problems. So for those who had a look at this chapter, what patterns were used in example? Do you remember? So example was about building ducks simulator. That was a lot of ducks. They could quack. So first of all, the patterns that allow us to implement different quack behavior. What is this pattern about? Like, what is the name of this pattern? Just different behavior.
Was that the strategy pattern?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So it's just quackable interface that quack, and different ducks quack it in different way. So that's strategy. Okay, next thing. They wanted goose to be quack as a duck. So what pattern was it? Despite goose has different interface, they do not quack, they do something like goo.
Adapter.
Yes. So we basically had to adapt our goose with their ability, not quack, but do some goo instead of quacking. But we wrapped it in goose adapter, so we could invoke method quack. Even we used goose, and we could see what exactly they pronounce. So that was adapter. The strategy adapter. Next one was they wanted to count quacks, and they wanted it only for ducks. They didn't want it for goose. So in this case, we should say like, okay, actually, we have this quackable interface, and our goose adapter uses this interface, but still, like, not everyone who implements this interface would need to, like, we do not need from everyone to count their quacks. So they wanted to do something like metrics. That will be my hint. They wanted to count every quack. What pattern they used to implement this? So remind about, yeah, okay, Daria.
Is
Let's
the
try.
decorator?
Yes, exactly. The good analogy of it, if you want to log this invocation, yeah, like we wanted to count them, we could think like we wanted to log them. Another thing, we wanted to count them the same, like we have request, we have response, we want to count request response. So we want to introduce counters. But again, we do not go and add counter to every single resource or controller that we use to handle this request response. Instead of it, we put decorator, and then we wrap our resources or controllers for this pattern. Yeah, so okay, that worked for them. And then they found out that their clients actually they forgot to do wrappers for counts, and they wanted to stop them to control creation of ducks by themselves. Instead of it, they said, okay, let me give you ready creation of ducks, and it could be just ducks, it could be ducks that you can count quacks. Yeah. Okay. So what was pattern? What was the pattern that they used? Yes, Sonali?
Factory.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. So they said, okay, because clients confused and they forgot to wrap ducks, and then it's like, oh, but I wanted to count ducks and I forgot. They created two big factories. Which one was just ducks, another one was ducks with counters. So clients could easily get the one that's wrapped from direct, like ducks that quack, yeah, instead of wrapping by themselves. So they removed control from client. They like control was hidden in this abstract factory, which allowed them to live better. Yes, so that's patterns that they used. Again, like I recommend to go through example by yourself and have a look like at every step what they implemented. And also think like, could you solve any task there with abstract class in Java instead of having interface? So my idea was why I would implement counter as decorator instead of using just after class and just put it there, like so much less job instead of going and wrap them every time. You just use abstract class. That was first things, but then I realized actually they wanted goose do not to be counted with quarks, and goose had already implementation of quackable. If you say instead of interface quackable, now I have abstract class which count quarks. You then finish that. For goose, you would also count with quarks anyway, because there are no chance for you to do it in the different way. That's the first thing. Another thing, you would need to rewrite all your code. Instead of implement interface, you need to say extends quackable abstract class, which wasn't that problem because they had only 5 implementation. Like, it's viable, but if you think about big systems, maybe it's worse. And also, again, it's dangerous because you may finish with the violation of Lisco substitution principle. We already talked through this course, what is this principle about? And we're telling like, if duck is not quack or do something else, it's not duck. So it's actually worth idea to use inheritance instead of composition. They could do another thing. They could introduce interface countable. So every time you use this interface and add it to every duck. And then you realize, but that's why they used decorator instead of it. They decorated quackable itself. So they didn't have to do 5 times the same implementation of the interface. So it could be absolutely different ideas how to refactor it. However, at the end, I think they picked the correct way. And the same, like, even I realized that sometime I saw examples of loggers and they implemented as interface, even for the same methods, that's duplicated a lot. Like now this class implement logger interface, which allows them to access to log, like to proper logger. And then every time you invoke method and you do log info, like this query has been sent, and then log info, this response has been received. But if you use decorator pattern, you could just wrap it in general request response, and you don't need to do this 25 times while you have 25 resources already, for example. And it's like, it's good combination of patterns indeed. And we will talk even more today about it. So again, please have a look at example as well. Anyone here programming in Python? Just let me know. And now we have full house of Java and JavaScript and TypeScript. Yeah, okay. So if you have different language in your day-to-day tasks, yeah, I would encourage you to go through this combining patterns chapter and having implementation in your language just to compare, like, how would you do this? Just to play with your language. And also, you're always welcome to share it in our channel. So we would be happy to see like how it will looks like. You may will surprise others a lot because languages are so different. So it's even like it's more interesting to learn language when you solve the same task with different language. Yeah, so you learn a lot from this language. Okay, so that's all about this example. Again, I decided to not put slides with just code that's already written in the book. But we're going to much more interesting topic that we're going to discuss today, and that's this model view controller pattern. Let me know who have ever heard this MVC pattern. Who have ever okay. So we have a lot of people who heard about it. Okay, so let me know who agreed those bullet points about model view controller pattern. That it's actually 3 patterns: strategy, observer, and composite. Okay, I see some doubts, more doubts. Okay, I will share with you how I was in, like, I had insomnia this night, and I decided to read this chapter. So then I had much worse insomnia when I came to this point. I was like, okay, I'm going to get up. I anyway couldn't sleep. I anyway had sleep deprivation, and I going to take my laptop and start to put slides for this section because I wasn't agree at all. At least I realized that I need to Google what is happening. So that was my first reaction. So I just said, they forgot to do peer review for this section. Who reviewed this one? Who actually looked at it? Like, what is happening? Why it's model view controller pattern about observer strategy? I had absolutely different idea what is MVC pattern. Okay, so I started to Google like what is happening. And then I found this in Google. So basically, it's a controller service repository pattern is MVC, which I was thinking the same. And that's it. Another thing that I found, Hacker News and long thread about discussion on MVC pattern, which like we use right now always model view controller, and now we have controller service repository. So which one is which one? And they started to discuss and finding out. And I like this. You get 13 different answers, at least 13, I would say. So it's like, are they still like even relevant MVC if it was so many years ago and it was idea of patterns? And as my friend told me, but look, MVC was the first idea to introduce separation of code base, not writing everything in one class. Because he told me like before we just write everything in one class, even in Java, we just put scripts like from OS scripts, we just drop them in string and we just do it like this. And bar scripts, we could just do this. We didn't care at all. And that was the idea like, let's start to layer something. He told me, why wouldn't we start to layer? That was the idea of the pattern. And then we started to do more layering, like tiers layers, like, you know, with different logic for front end indeed, which is view, logic for backend, for modeling, for database, which is model, and services. That's my also say like, let's do business level as a services, as a controllers in MVC, but services as in controller service repository pattern. Yeah. To not be confused for myself, I would always say instead of controller service repository, I will say resource service repository, because also if you look at not only Spring framework, but other frameworks, they call resources those classes that accept HTTP endpoints. That to have even less confusion, resource service repository. But anyway, now it's stuck controller service repository, which confusing even more. So that's we've come. We tried hard, we built so many books, patterns, etc. But now we come in the era of absolute confusion between all the things and how to connect dots. But we're doing it here, finally. So what is controller service repository? This is something that now we do today in 2024, almost 2025. Today we say controller is someone who manages the REST API, which is a view of our microservice, because now we all live in microservices. Service is someone who do business logic, so we may introduce even models between them. We may say we accept this REST API model. On the service level, we work with our business model level, and then we convert them even one more to repository level. No one do this, but sometimes people do these many abstractions. So at the end, you're absolutely safe. If you change something in business logic, you change abstraction on the service level. If you change repository, you change only repository level. If you change API, you change first only controller level, and then like you ensure that everything is working when you deploy the new API, even like service and repository is not ready yet. So very gentle, very baby steps for any change, everything super maintainable, predictable, etc. Yeah, okay. So that's how now our small microservices look like. Now they solve one business function, or maybe two, three business functions. They have DTOs, so that is on the right. They have REST controllers, which, or REST resources, whatever you use the terminology in your career, your workplace. You have REST APIs or gRPC APIs. You also may find out that you would like to do procedure calls, RPC APIs, and then gRPC is today the most popular implementation of RPC. We have also mappers, especially if you would look at classic Spring applications that we will share. We also have annotation mappers and we have package mappers. And we map our REST model to entities. But like mostly you will restrict yourself with two different DTOs and you wouldn't do also business logic service. It's a bit overkill. It's again like where is enough to have patterns, there is enough have abstractions. What abstractions will be enough? Yeah. Yeah, and then you save some entities to repository and they go through the save methods to database. And that's it. Now today we all live in this paradigm. I would even say you're lucky if you have something like caches for searching, or if you have some more complicated logic where you need something like lightweights, because you now have something unusual, but I don't know what is the percentage of microservices like these today deployed. I would guess it's more than 80% all over the world. I don't know, to be honest, the statistics, but it's just what I would guess now, like almost all services. They are just repository, service controller, controller, service repository, which is give you a very good framework just to build them and continue to work with business like on the most interesting part, what will be different business logic, what could be different edge cases, how to make it faster. And you and your peers understand each other from one word because you don't need to discuss like what will be the infrastructure of our microservices. Instead of it, everything templated, everything patronized, we would say, and that's reduce cost of operation to build them from scratch. So we have benefits from this as well. So that was my understanding of view controller model. And even after thinking a lot about it, I realized actually I knew that it's different when I only started programming so many years ago. I knew that it's something more complex than just controller service repository. Over so many years, I just forgot. To be honest, I even knew that there are some ideas behind complex patterns. When my friends read the same book many years ago, they shared it with me. And I forgot. So this concept of just having controller service repositories that's now so sealed in our modern world, we even forgetting about it. So that's what I thinking like, and that's something that I found actually, that while MVC patterns was initially used for desktop applications, and indeed, I also would add here important note. If you would go for companies that's already 20 years in the market, and they did desktop applications that they give to some providers, like they sell them. For example, this is their business. Then you may find out that it was very useful to learn about MVC pattern, because you will open this code base and you will find out everything: model, view, controller, observer, composites, like, and it will now give you total sense because you learn patterns, and now you can read this code, and there will be even MVCC pattern, MVC, something like this, something as well like from 90s. But again, a company already is there 25, 30 years, and their soft still working, which we can think about like big banks, especially in Europe as well, not only in UK. Not sure about all others of the world, but I asked my colleagues, my friends, my ex-colleagues, so that's experience that they shared. They told me like, but banks that's already, again, 30, 50, 40 years there, they use these technologies. And you may come engineer who need to understand those technologies, because that's the task to support this system. Yes, to migrate to something new, but again, like to support something that's already existing 40 years there and it's working today in 2025. So you may still find out it's useful. But you also can find on the internet that they say, no, that's just controllers, that's a view, that's repositories, a model, and no observers anymore, no composites. Simple. So basically, again, sources attached, million different interpretation. Don't be confused if your colleague do not understand what is MVC, and be careful when you discuss. And if you come to this point of discussing this pattern, because you need to check with them what they mean, and you need to worry them, like, like there are actually a million different interpretations today. I can give you a source that's confirm my thoughts. So let's first of all find out, what do you mean by this? I know classic one, and I know controller service repository. So now you level up your discussions with your colleagues. Okay. If you read this chapter, please forgive us, because it's indeed, we say like, okay, that was kind of hard chapter to understand all these ideas about observer, why they put observers there. Again, composite, not the easiest pattern. And now we see that it's not used anymore. Again, I gave you an example where it could use. Yeah, also Barbara telling at me that for anyone using Node and JavaScript, framework uses MVC. Okay, I would be happy also with examples, links for code, like for GitHub. Again, like your most volunteers here, Java developers for more than decades. So we would be happy to learn from you how these patterns, again, applying in different languages. So yeah, please don't hesitate if you have any other examples for this discussion and to see like how it's applied in different languages. More than happy to have a look. And I would say for Node and JavaScript, when you build full stack application to work with model and views, I would say it will make total sense for me. Just again, because now Java moved to entire backend. We do not build any more GUI for Java, despite like all libraries still there. Just we do not use desktop application anymore. We use web application. It's quite rare when we did install this desktop application and would use it instead of having access to the same functional, not only from our laptop, but from our phone. So that's why it's now made so much more sense for web application instead of desktop applications. And that's why we forgot how to use MVC patterns in Java. Okay, let me now go and share with you more about controller service repository. And that will be our repository for women coding community. If you'd like to join us and to learn about Java and patterns and controllers and services and repositories and contribute, we would be more than happy, because we're trying to make much more dynamic environment around our resources, website, mentorship program. So we're building proper backend for this, and we're using Java for this, because again, your servants, mostly Java developer for decades. Yeah, so here you can find everything. Let's start with member controller. And you see, this is a annotation controller that we use to say to Spring, please create an instance for us. Abstract factory hidden from us through Spring. That will do it for us. We don't need to create a new instance. We just say, this is annotation. This is how it will work. So Spring will create it for us. Then we say, we always name this class controller to help other developers to understand what we mean, like what was the meaning of it. Then we say that we have at least one service that controller will work this. We may say OR constructor because in Java notation allow you to even create instances through annotations. Or we indeed will use here afterward. It's how differently it could be as well. Now I told you about resources that accept HTTP calls. So we do not even say get post, we just use annotations today. What else we do here? Yeah, basically the response will be given from service. So that's from layer service. And we build response very easily with all mappers in place. It will transform this to response for us magically. Let's look at platform service. So that will be the service level. We go to service package. Our package is very helpful for us to understand layering in our application. Platform service, first of all, marked with annotation service. This go from framework stereotype, which is mean stereotype more than anything. Would say like it just creating an instance, and this is information for your colleagues. That's it's one. This one is service. Like it's do not establish any particular things that service will do. Just create instance, but you mark it with stereotype because you say stereotypically it will be service, something like this, like in principle. Yeah, and you also say service as a end of name of the class again to give meta information to your colleagues. That's what you've meant. You've meant that this class on the diagram that we've seen will be on this level. So that will be responsible for business logic. And now this one have repositories to work this. So now repositories, we go through afterward again to initialize them, which will mean that exactly one repository will be there. It's singleton implementation. Yeah, and for example, we can say repository save, find all, whatever we get from repository. So the most idea is that you never get access to repository from controller. This could be even deprecated through some compilation or some frameworks. Again, in Java, we have these frameworks that could do not allow you to even have an access to this. It's more like advanced. You build a lot, and you want this engineering culture to be applied for 200 engineers. You may even introduce these frameworks. Of course, for volunteering projects, you just use one builder without any tactile PMD checks, etc. Yeah, and that's it. That's how it works. And again, if you'd like to learn and play with it, if you'd like to help us to build these things, you are welcome to contribute in our platform. Just let us know. Okay, let's continue to explore a bit more. So abstract factory and factory methods. We create through them controllers, services, repositories, and mappers. And mappers, this is the thing that, okay, let me also try to check and show you mappers as well. If we have them. I don't remember where they are.
What are you looking for?
Mappers.
Builder?
No. The ones that basically use a notation mapper. If we use them. We don't, then fine. Okay. I can say that another idea of mapper is configuration. It's just map configuration from config that you give them from JSON to object. So that will be example of mapper as well. That's again given from framework, framework. So again, like if you're interested to learn this optimization for annotations and you would like to contribute in project like this, again, I can, highly recommend to do this. Yeah. So return again here. So controllers, services, repositories, mappers. Mappers will just map one model from one layer to model to another layer. Like if we have different model in API and database, we may use mapper. If we have the same, we don't need them. But if we have different DTOs, different models, we would use mappers as well. So they will be singletons. Builders, we can, builders, another one that I can show you. Model.
CMS, yeah. Mentorship.
Member. Oh, okay, let's go to mentorship. No, it's attributes, sorry. Pages, attributes. It's in the main, right?
Yeah.
It's pages. Okay, yes, here. Yes. So, Lombok annotation builder. It just give you builder. That's his build. That's it. Also, you know that in Java, you may know you need equal hash code contract, and equals and hash code also could be pre-built with annotation to string different constructors. So that's kind of thing that's right now optimized Java a lot. Like you just build it for annotations because like everyone know what is under the hood. Yeah, so that's his builder, but again, we use builder pattern because it's much easier than to build objects instead of using millions of constructors. Prototype allow to update our entities, again, copy. As example that we wrote with copy, if you use your builders, if you code them, or you may even, you don't need even to code the builder itself, but you can use some copy methods. And then you can build prototypes on the model level quite quickly. And it's very useful pattern. I notice that not many people know how to play this prototype, but it could be done in the way that we shared when we were talking about prototype. State, it's more like model could be created in the beginning, model could be updated, then activated, deleted. So that's your states. Okay, yeah. So basically, even without implementing state pattern, like implementing every state is a behavior, you still use state pattern by the concept, not with implementation. So this telling you like most of pattern, they indeed is usage. Like we indeed use them. Not maybe we do not implement them, but by the concept. We know where they are. We know how exactly they help us to build our application. And that was mostly creation of patterns. Now, if you think about behavior pattern strategy, we define different controller service microservices strategies, like they all will do as repository save, find all, find, etc. operations. However, they will have different strategies, like one will work with membership, another one will work with member. That's already different strategies. The same for controllers. One will serve API for, again, members, one for mentorship. So that's different strategies, but controllers are the same. Get, put, post, delete. Patch, yeah. Decorators, login and metrics, again. I'm curious how to do this with controller. I haven't yet. I haven't checked yet because, for example, in Spring, it's actually hiding from you the moment when you create the object, but I will check and share with you as well how to do decorators when you have everything pre-built for you. You do not have access to these factory methods. That's a good question. Template methods. Again, we encapsulating some algorithms. That means that we may use it for interfaces, as we showed at some session. That could be our template methods. And then we just reuse them when we create instances. Iterators and streams, it's allowed us to work with collections that we do every day. Proxy for example, caching, we may do it quite oftenly because it's quite oftenly when we have metadata, or even we do configuration for caching this configuration first, and then this configuration living in our application. And we may update this configuration at some point, but we are working with caches, and that's our proxy to configuration, to metadata, to data that are not updating quite oftenly. It's one of the example. And observers, it's something that exists quite often outside as well of our applications because we use Kafka, RabbitMQ, ZeroMQ, OtherMQ, CMC, I think, in Amazon. So we listen to events and updates from events. So yeah, that's how we moved to system design with all our low-level design patterns. Load balancers, DNS, we can think about them as our proxies. Our application is controller service repository or model view controller, as we may think, but basically one this combination of patterns for microservice. And you see here database, and we also care about our replicas could be updated. So we use observers like replica listen to event. And we may also replicate our data for message queues, and it will be observers. And of course, we also have replication, which we remember about Momenta. We have backups, etc. So we can say we still use all these patterns today, just to move to another level. And when you read this book, in this book it say like, think about if you need the pattern. I would say think where you already can find this pattern. Like where you can discover this pattern today in your big system. Yes, you don't have to implement all patterns, but think where they already implemented. That's why you don't have to implement them. Think about bigger pictures as well, like challenge your colleagues about system design. Ask them, okay, what patterns do we use? What our system is about? Like, do we have backups? Where we have backups? How backups are implemented? Who is in charge of it? So try to dig around, like even, yeah, just be curious. And that's it. And we are almost there. Yeah, we completed today. So it seems like that's it. Journey is finished. We came for week 10. And now we look how to combine patterns. Again, please have a look at the chapters. Think like, how would you implement combination of patterns by yourself? Share with us, volunteer for this. If you have some ideas how different patterns implemented in your language that you love and you use like day to day, or maybe you used it in the past, like today you use Java, so you came here, or like please share with us. Yeah, like we would be very happy to learn from you. If you use Python and you use patterns in Python and it's different patterns, yeah, please share with us as well. We would be very happy to learn from you, and everyone in our group will be happy to learn from you. Yeah, and if you didn't finish our quizzes, please finish our quizzes to earn certificate. If you missed some sessions, everything published in YouTube. We are very in time every time with our sessions. They all there. You can find them. Everything. We didn't miss any session to publish in YouTube. So you're fully skilled to be ready and go through quizzes as well. So if you missed something, go through session, look at chapter, go to quiz. If you still struggle, just ask us. Me, Sanali, Anna, we will help you how to answer some questions if you struggle there, yeah? And these questions, it's not assessment, it's for you to check out like what you understood, what have you understand. Like it's more like the same as with puzzles in book. Like trying to solve it actually give you good thinking about patterns again and again. Like, okay, what is it? How to connect them? You can find there like with exercise with arrows. You need to write arrows like which one pattern is which one, and especially when you have already several patterns, it's becoming more and more tricky. But every time when you're able to connect them as dots, it's like, okay, now which one, like what is the difference between which one and which one? And then it's easy for you to navigate around. Like then share with us what patterns you discovered by yourself, because again, you may find that right now there is some pattern which is combination of different patterns. Yeah, they rarely exist alone. And in the chapter of combining patterns, you've seen like applications that use several patterns at the same time, which is absolutely what we have, right? And last thing is surprise. So let me share a little bit more about it. In January, we will have a big week of rewards, of celebration and recognition of our members who participated in this course, but also in mentorship program, in Christmas coding challenge that's running right now, 25 days of coding. In our, yeah, like, and for volunteers as well. So do not miss out. So please check for updates in our page. We will publish events soon, and we hope to have very cool session where you can also share like more insights, what you've learned about patterns with us, like how it helped you, etc. And please share it with each other as well. So it will be very helpful to everyone. And we will give you certificates there. So you still have time to complete quizzes. Do not put it too far away, because the most important thing about learning is shifting the forgetting offset, which is mean then faster you will go to quiz, then easier it will be for you to learn this. If you go in a week, it will be just harder. It's trust me, it works. I checked on myself. So it will help you to memorize better. So do not postpone it for too far. But anyway, yes, you have a little bit more time right now. Do not postpone it until New Year. Try to complete it now. And in January, we will basically give out these certificates. So that will be this session. Okay. Again, if you're interested in anything you've missed, the very classic one, it could be found in the internet. These ones that we've read, or just newer edition with colorful pictures, or raccoon book. Yeah. And again, if you have any questions, ask us in Slack or ask us in LinkedIn as well. And yeah, here I am going to end up recording.